Hey guys, I want to talk about back when I first started playing pool. I'm pretty sure I mentioned all this before. I started playing pool seriously when I was 18 in the Air Force. Not old enough to go in the bars, but they had a rec center on base, and that's where I started to play. And there was one guy in there that was the first guy I ever saw play pool that champion of the world. He's the best pool player that ever lived. And he probably wasn't. Matter of fact, I beat him the next year. But anyway, he was, old and grizzled pool player of probably like 20, and there I was 18. So anything he was going to tell me, I was going to listen to it. One of the things that he told me, one of the very first real pool lessons or whatever I ever got in my life, beyond just like my dad showing me which end to hit the cue ball with, stuff like that, was he said that you should never, he said never, I kind of took that as almost never, hit the cue ball on the vertical axis or on the horizontal axis. In other words, what he said was you should hit everything with top right, top left, bottom left, or bottom right. Now I ended up kind of tweaking that a little bit. So this is bottom right. Like put it in cleaner. To be, unless you have to hit it dead center, or on the vertical axis, or on the horizontal axis. And his reasoning for this was, at the time, it kind of made sense to me. So this is top left. We're human beings. And especially like at my level, as a pretty much raw beginner, more of a human being than this guy was. But we think we know where we're going to hit the cue ball, but maybe we're off a little bit. Maybe we're off more than a little bit, depending on how good we are. But his reasoning was, let's say I want to shoot this 13 with straight top, straight 12 o'clock on the clock, and roll up here for either the 14 or the 10. The reasoning was, well, because I am a human being and not a perfect shooter, I could screw up. Instead of 12 o'clock, I could actually put a little bit of left English on it. I could actually put a little bit of right English on it. And those two things absolutely affect, squirt. You're going to get a little bit of squirt. Even if you just had just a tiny bit of left English, for example, you're going to get a little bit of squirt to your right. A little bit of right English, you're going to get a little bit of squirt to your left. It's going to happen. And that little bit of spin you just put on the cue ball accidentally is going to throw the object ball to the left, to the right, depending on what spin you had. And what this guy was saying, I wish I could remember his name. I don't remember his name though. Was because I'm trying to hit it right dead at the top, but I could screw up in either direction. I don't really know how to make any kind of adjustment, I guess. I'm adjusting for hitting it at noon. But if I don't hit it at noon, then I'm probably going to miss either way. If I screw up hitting it at noon at all, I'm probably going to miss, depending on the difficulty of the shot and stuff like that. So this is going to be a little bit of top right, a little bit of outside English, not just straight top. He pretty much said the same thing about horizontal axis. If you mean to hit it at exactly 3 o'clock, just dead right English, you could, because you're human, not perfect, actually put a little bit of top, a little bit of bottom. And that also affects your squirt, your throw, how the cue ball throws, the direction it throws. It affects stuff. So while you may want to hit it at 3 o'clock, you may fail. So this is going to be about 8 o'clock. Low left. Anyway, the whole gist of what this guy was saying was, if I'm going to shoot a shot with low left, say 7:30 on the clock, could potentially screw that up because, again, human, not perfect. But I'm probably not going to screw up low left so much that I actually put high right on it, or even low right, or high left. I'm probably still going to be in that low left quadrant of the cue ball. And by still being in that same quadrant, it's not going to screw up the shot so bad if I don't hit the cue ball exactly where I wanted. I don't know if any of that made sense. It actually kind of made sense to me back then. This is low right, perfectly straight in shot, but I did not just put straight low on that, because I might have accidentally put low left or low right, just a little bit, but could have been enough to make me miss a shot. That was the whole gist of what this guy was saying, was pick a quadrant on the cue ball. Oh, and he basically said that the evilest thing you could ever possibly do is hit the cue ball dead center. Now, I'm not saying this guy was right about everything. I'm saying it was interesting because it was a guy a lot better than me trying to teach me stuff instead of just trying to just take beer money from me, which he did quite a bit of that as well. But he was also trying to, impart some knowledge. But he said, trying to hit a center ball is the worst possible thing, because human, not perfect, probably not going to hit center ball, or maybe not going to hit exactly center ball, but you could vary in any direction. Like where you actually hit the cue ball and what kind of spin and stuff you put on the cue ball can almost be random if you're trying to hit center ball. So like in this case, this is going to be bottom left again. I would have liked to have made that shot, but I didn't. That was, like I said, kind of like my first pull lesson. And for a long time, when I played 8-ball and 9-ball and even straight pull, that's pretty much what I did. I didn't worry about it, I don't think, as much as that guy did. If I had a shot like this 3, like perfectly straight in on this 3 into that corner, I would shoot it with just straight bottom. For the most part, I would just shoot it with straight bottom. But if I was off a little bit, now it's a little bit of a cut to my right, just a slight cut to my right, I would put a little bit of bottom left on it, and just shoot it that way. And I got really used to how much am I going to throw the ball just by having that little bit of spin. I think I got pretty good at that, and that's probably one of the reasons, because I wasn't afraid to use the spin, because it was, at least one guy had told me you pretty much have to use the spin on every shot. He didn't like center ball. He didn't like straight follow, straight draw, straight left, or straight right. He liked these complicated spin things, bottom, left, just a little bit. But. So yeah, and up until, I moved back here and started learning how to bank, that's pretty much what I did. Yeah, I don't think I was as adamant about it as that guy would have been, bottom right. But if I had an option to shoot something besides vertical axis or horizontal axis, then I would take that option. Bottom right. That was really good. You see how good I hit that ball? Actually, it leads me up to a good segue here, a good thing here. I quit doing it for the most part when I started trying to learn how to bank. When I first started learning how to bank, I was scared to bank. I almost never banked a ball for 20 years because I knew there were all these variables, and I knew how much spin affected the bank, how much speed affected the bank, and they scared me to death. And I was horrible at them when I did try them. One of the reasons they scared me to death. But one of the things that I found was I could reduce those variables a little bit by going to vertical axis. On bank shots, go to vertical axis on the ball, not even horizontal. So I'm talking about top, center, or draw, and that's what I ended up doing, just to try to eliminate that spin-induced throw, spin-induced spin, and all that stuff that could affect the bank, and actually did affect banks. So I got to the point where, I learned that instead of banking this 5 here with bottom left and trying to come around like this, that I was better off just shooting it with straight bottom. Cut it a little bit more than I would have to with bottom left. But at least then I don't have to worry about throw or squirt or any of that stuff. I don't have to worry about contact-induced throw. But mainly I don't have to worry about squirt. I don't have to worry about that 5 having all this goofy English on it. I can just shoot it, and in theory, barely make it. So, yeah, I like the advice that the guy gave for the games that I was playing at the time. Hell, at the time, this was back in Mississippi, I was playing 8-ball and 9-ball on a bar box. That's the only place I could play was at a rec center. So I was playing 8-ball and 9-ball on a bar box. And his advice was very good, I feel like, for that. It allowed me to learn to not be afraid to put spin on a ball, and it allowed me to learn how to compensate for that spin, because you do have to compensate for the squirt and the throwing of that. You do have to do it. It learned me how to do it. Can't make my mind which one of these to shoot. So this will be bottom right. And that's why I couldn't make my mind up which ones to shoot, because I knew I was going to get the same damn shot again. But when I switched to banks, no, it made more sense to go back to vertical axis as much as I could. Kind of the exact opposite of what this guy had taught me. Never use vertical axis, which I kind of tweaked to only use vertical axis, when you have to. What I kind of learned in banking is that you kind of have to all the time. At least certainly when you're learning. Now this bank right here, I'm going to see if I can squeeze this past the 7 or squeeze this past the 15, which I don't think I can do. But I'm going to put right English or left English on this shot. Just for this kind of shot, these back cut banks like this, I have better success with left English. So in this case, it'll just be straight 9 o'clock. Almost made it. Yeah, I didn't really think that ball had room. I'm not sure where I was going with this. I just wanted to just talk about what this guy used to say, set myself perfectly straight in, and it helped. My young self, it did help. It helped in confidence and being able to more quickly understand what was going on with squirt and all that. And this was the early 80s. And, squirt was one of those closely guarded secrets that the top pool players talked about, or take it back, knew about but didn't talk about because they didn't want anybody to know. And it absolutely still existed. Just they just didn't talk about it. Top right. And here all of a sudden, I'm 18 and I'm getting, first-hand knowledge of it and first-hand experience with it. It's a really good shot too. Yeah. This is why I need to practice 8-ball. But luckily, they don't make you talk into a camera when you're playing in a tournament. On the left. So I'm very grateful to that guy. I wish I could remember his name. This was Keesler Air Force Base in Biloxi, Mississippi. And when I went there for my technical school, he had already been there for a year or whatever. He was studying some language, Arabic or Japanese or something. And then I had to come back to Keesler like a year and a half later for some follow-on training. And the guy was still there, still taking the same class. You know, for all I know, he's still freaking there, still taking the same class. I don't know what language he was trying to learn, or maybe he was just really horrible at it and had to keep retaking the same class. Don't know. Probably not still there. That was 40 years ago. Yeah, maybe he's running the base by now. Maybe he's still on direction or hustling young kids for beer money. Don't know. But I appreciated what he was doing for me back then and what he was teaching me. And I used it for a very long time. I tried to pass that along to other beginners. Not because vertical axis and horizontal axis are evil, but because this is why you kind of need to watch out for them, because you're a human being and not perfect. And picking a quadrant, upper left, upper right, lower left, picking a quadrant isn't necessarily a bad idea, especially when you're starting out, because it can kind of jumpstart your learning of what happens with spin and squirt and throw and all that stuff. Guess that's it for this video. Bye, guys.